Hello, BookTube. I have a video for you here for Poetry Thursday, an informal BookTube ritual where some of us read poetry on Thursday. I already did a video today that went to over an hour. There are very few videos on this channel that go over an hour, where I'm by myself anyway, and it's not a live stream. So I'll keep this brief. I am reading my way through this anthology, 20th Century American Poetry, and it's very good. It's very, very good. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I'm certain that as we go on, we're third of the way through. I'm certain that as we go on, I'm going to enjoy the actual poems less and less. Because we're getting closer and closer to 1959, when poetry as a popular genre of literature died, and was replaced by a members-only gated community. But we're not there yet, and I have been enjoying creeping along here. But this is a great anthology, but it has a quality that a lot of great anthologies have, where the anthologists, the editors who put the book together, will say, well, under the heading, under the rubric of what we're doing, great nautical fiction, war stories, fiction and nonfiction. When we think about that heading, well, automatically, as wide-ranging readers, we know of a whole bunch of things that have to be in that book. And anthology editors, anthologizers, when they reach that point, will go in one of two directions. They will either fill their book with that stuff, or they will be a little rebellious. They'll add stuff that they think should be in such a collection, or in the case of, for instance, Quiller Couch's original version of the Oxford Book of English Verse, the whole thing will be just the author's predilections and not much else. It's a quality that I used to count as a demerit in anthologies, but I actually have come to embrace it. I've come to like it. I've learned a lot, and also been shown a lot of authors I would not have otherwise seen. It's just important to keep your wits about you when anthologists do that, because they're not changing reality. If these editors are giving you a 20th century American poetry, they're not including the doggerel that was in Harper's Weekly, and they're doing that not just because it had no effect on the genre of poetry, but because it's bad. They're making those kinds of judgments, but they have their favorites. We've already seen them do this a couple of times, and that's what we've got today. Today we've got a poet who does not belong in this anthology, but they put him in here anyway, so we're going to deal with him. His name is John Peale Bishop, and he had much more of an influence in the world of the Republic of Letters as a critic and as an editor, as a friend to other writers, including the Lost Generation set in Paris. He had a much greater influence on them there than he did in his own work. His poetry should not be in here. But there are two poems that are in here. One of them is so bad that even I can't bring myself to read it out loud. So we will pick the other one, which is called My Grandfather Kept Peacocks. This is My Grandfather Kept Peacocks by John Peale Bishop. When other reasons for pride were gone, winters he sat by the green-primed wood box, and pine knots flared upon a meditation of wild blue eyes, and a gray beard stalked on the thin despair of a dwindling hand. Frost had been kind. Windows gave back a glazed white stare of crazy eyes, but blind. Carpets were windy stripes upon the floor. He could not see unless he undertook the door, those arrogant birds whom the wind balked in their poor progress through the snow. He could not touch the door. He did not dare, because of a looking-glass beside the door. He would not risk the smallest crack of snow, lest death should see him there, looking from out the glass beside the door. And that is from 1933. And I think we can agree that's where it should have stayed. That's pretty bad. The conceit, the organizing idea of the poem is good. An old, blind, gray man who hesitates to look out the door in the winter because he's afraid that death will see him. That's pretty good. You can imagine what a talented poet would have done with that, but this is not that poet. So this will not be a long Poetry Thursday. Unfortunately, in this anthology, the next poet I also think does not belong in American poetry anthologies, and yet he's always in them. So with this poet, I'm not learning anything. Poetry might not be my foremost forte, but I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. You're not going to tell me that something is anthologizable when it's not. The next poet, though, I may learn. I often learn on Poetry Thursday. Next up is Archibald MacLeish, who I don't like at all. But I will read what the authors have to say about Archibald MacLeish. I'll also read more, maybe more importantly, the things they choose to include. They're very conscious of what they're including. And I could learn a lot. I'll also read all the poems out loud while I'm deciding which one or two I want to read to you. That has been a learning experience for me. That has changed my opinion on a few poets. So we'll hope that it happens next time. I'll be there right with you next Thursday when hopefully it will be 30 degrees cooler in Boston. Hopefully it will be a totally different atmosphere, literally, than it is now, where it's almost 100 degrees and soppingly humid. I'm not complaining. The little air conditioning unit that David Murphy put in the window makes the little book room perfectly habitable. It's just when you step out of it that you have problems, which my little bean and I occasionally have to do. But anyway, that's your Poetry Thursday for now. Bit of a dud, but it's an anthologist's prerogative. That if you're going to get paid, usually slave wages, to do this sort of thing, you're going to include some pet authors of your own. It happens all the time, and I'm almost always grateful for it. In big anthologies that Gardner Dozois used to put together, or Terry Carr, or David Hartwell, always there would be stuff in there that was just a dogged favorite of theirs. And that I'd never heard of, and I'm a fairly active reader in their genre, and I was always happy to encounter it. Not so much in this case, but I'm sure it'll happen again in this book. So we will reconvene next Thursday and find out. Thank you, BookTube.